Welcome back to a brand new explainer. Today, we're breaking down a wild, zero-to-hero journey that takes the absolute most mundane, soul-crushing experience imaginable, the corporate grind, and somehow turns it into the ultimate weapon in a magical realm. We're tracking the complete chronological rise of Dennosuke Uchimura. And get this, his greatest superpower isn't shooting fireballs or swinging some giant buster sword. Nope. It is immaculate business administration and ruthless corporate strategy.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this premise is absolutely fascinating. In most stories, a character gets transported to a fantasy world and boom, they immediately discover they have some latent, earth-shattering magical ability. Not Uchimura. He arrives with exactly zero magic. Nothing. But what he does have is years of surviving the brutal, highly competitive, and deeply unfair environment of the modern corporate world. And as we'll see, the tactics used in boardrooms and office cubicles translate shockingly well to ruling a demonic empire.
Chapter 1. Summoned to the Demon Army.
So, to really understand his rise, we have to start at the very beginning of our story. Uchimura is unexpectedly summoned from his miserable life to become the newest manager of foreign affairs, or, in the terminology of this new world, one of the 4 elite generals for the Demon King's army. The contrast here is practically cinematic. On Earth, Uchimura was an overworked, severely undervalued salaryman. He was constantly getting transferred to dead-end departments, doing all the heavy lifting while his colleagues just swooped in and took all the credit. He was, in the eyes of his company, an ignored loser. But in the demon world, he is instantly granted the title of an elite general, complete with benefits and department head authority. It's a massive culture shock, and naturally his crippling imposter syndrome kicks in hard. He feels entirely unworthy of the position.
But then, the Demon King drops this absolute truth bomb. Those idiots only value what they see and do not pay attention to the work performed behind the scenes. The Demon King actually investigated Uchimura's corporate record back on Earth. He saw the resilience, the problem-solving, the incredible ability to build businesses from scratch in totally hostile environments. He recognized that Uchimura's true potential wasn't in raw physical strength, but in his unmatched ingenuity.
Chapter 2. Merging with Ogres and Minotaurs.
Uchimura's ingenuity is immediately put to the test, and we need to treat these early diplomatic negotiations with the exact same dramatic intensity as massive fantasy battles, because honestly, the stakes are just as high. Let's move to Orma and see how this builds. Looking at his rapid progression, on day 1, he wins over the incredibly stubborn Minotaur tribe simply by understanding their culture. Previous negotiators treated the hay the Minotaurs brought into their rooms like it was just trash, but Uchimura realized they actually needed hay beds because their massive bodies would break standard human furniture. By simply respecting that one detail, he secured an alliance. By week 2, he's dealing with the ogres, and by month 1, he's trading with the Land of Gold. But let's zoom in on that ogre negotiation for a second, because it is brilliant.
So the ogre patriarch, Ugri, was incredibly stubborn and hostile. He was literally demanding the Demon King's head. But instead of fighting him or causing some massive diplomatic incident, Uchimura applies a ruthless corporate strategy. He completely bypasses the stubborn leader and goes directly to the smaller surrounding demi-human tribes that the ogres rely on for food and trade. By merging those smaller tribes into the demon army, he completely isolates the ogres, forcing them to yield and accept an alliance through sheer economic pressure. Guys, it's a hostile corporate takeover, executed flawlessly.
Chapter 3. Economics and Magical Inventions.
With the army growing so rapidly from these successful mergers, Uchimura faces his next massive challenge, a growing food crisis and border villages that are constantly being devastated by magical beasts. He needs to arm the military with new magical technology, and he has to do it on a ridiculously tight budget. So, what does he do? He applies cost-efficiency logic. He partners with this eccentric magic researcher named Sylphi. Now, Sylphi's previous designs were incredibly powerful, sure, but they cost like 10 million gold each to make. Uchimura flips the script. He realizes they don't need a multi-purpose magical nuke, they just need a simple device to scare away the beasts. By limiting the device to a single spell, they can use cheap, low-grade magic stones. Together, they invent the Rosemary, a highly effective, incredibly affordable, mass-produced defense device.
But inventing it isn't enough, right? He needs to secure funding by selling it to the highly volatile Dwarf King of the Kingdom of Rampage. Here, he uses a classic business psychology tactic called the anchoring effect. Uchimura first presents the king with these luxury silver goods, which the king easily destroys, totally scoffing at their weakness. But by establishing this high-end context first, when Uchimura finally presents the practical rosemary device as a revolutionary defense tool, the king perceives its value as astronomically high. Uchimura sells an initial 300 units for a massive profit, solving their budgetary crisis in one brilliant sweep.
Chapter 4. Betrayal of the Merchant Guild.
But of course, success breeds jealousy. Uchimura's economic victories put him right in the crosshairs of his most cunning and greedy enemy yet, the corrupt, totally ruthless merchant guild leader, Viper. 50,000 coins. That was the absurd, extortionate price Viper demanded per bag of gin, which is a staple grain in this world. Viper wanted to artificially manufacture a devastating food crisis just by hoarding the grain. When Uchimura approaches him to buy food for the starving populace, Viper literally demands Uchimura kneel and beg. Viper thinks he has cornered the market and completely checkmated the demon army.
But listen, you do not play Monopoly with a master corporate strategist. Uchimura actually notices a spy in his ranks, a young slave girl named Neela, who is working for Viper under duress. Instead of exposing her, he feeds her fake information to make Viper think the demon army is desperate and scrambling, locally. Meanwhile, entirely behind the scenes, Uchimura takes roasted dragon meat, which is a massive delicacy, and trades it with a neighboring country for a gargantuan, highly discounted shipment of gin. He completely bypasses Viper's monopoly, crashes the local market price, and secures the food. Viper is utterly humiliated and swiftly exiled.
Chapter 5. The Great Calamity Strikes.
Just as the economy finally stabilizes, the entire tone of our story shifts dramatically. Because economic victories mean absolutely nothing when a world-ending physical threat arrives. A world-class calamity, a colossal swarm of wyverns known as the Arvinis, descends upon the kingdom, interrupting all their progress. The fortress is on the brink of collapse, and not just from the wyverns, but from internal bickering between the demons and the demihumans. But Uchimura steps up as the ultimate project manager. He implements the sword and shield strategy. He unites the factions by playing to their specific strengths. The demihumans, who excel at long-range attacks, act as the shield, distracting the wyverns. The demons, who possess raw physical strength, wait in ambush as the sword. It is a coordinated, flawless fighting force that results in 0 casualties.
But here's the terrifying part. The wyverns are not mindless beasts. They adapt. They completely bypass the front lines and push deeper. Uchimura studies their patterns and realizes a horrifying truth. The wyverns are selectively targeting female soldiers because of their higher magical energy. With resources running dry, he is forced to propose his most dangerous high-stakes strategy yet, which he calls the Last Rebellion. He must use the female soldiers as live bait to lure the wyvern swarm into a massive, concentrated ambush.
The troops are terrified, obviously, and morale plummets. To rally them, Uchimura delivers a speech of incredible emotional gravity. He doesn't puff out his chest or pretend to be fearless. He stands before them, admits his own weakness, and declares, "I am no hero because, in this country, none exists." He tells them that they only have each other, and that their collective effort is the literal only way to survive. His vulnerability inspires the terrified troops to hold the line, executing the terrifying ambush and driving the wyverns back. But just as the swarm is defeated, the true calamity reveals itself, an earth-shattering, colossal magical turtle that was commanding them the whole time. It's a threat so massive that the demon lord himself must step onto the battlefield, obliterating the creature in one blow, and finally saving the realm.
Chapter 6. The Next Demon King. With the realm secured, a grand victory award ceremony is held. But behind closed doors, the Demon King pulls Uchimura aside in private. And he doesn't just thank him. He looks at this former corporate desk jockey and asks a very heavy, defining question. What is a king? When Uchimura accurately describes a leader who guides a nation, the Demon King drops the ultimate bombshell. He asks Uchimura to become the next Demon King.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core conflict of our entire story. Even after everything, all the victories and impossible odds, Uchimura's view of himself is clouded by his past. He sees a powerless, traumatized, and unworthy salaryman. Actually, he literally drafts a resignation letter in his head, terrified of the responsibility. But the Demon Lord's view is objective reality. He sees a strong, immensely intelligent, and fiercely kind leader who fundamentally transformed an entire kingdom through sheer ingenuity.
Uchimura is ready to run away. But before he can, the friends and allies he uplifted along the way, Nomo, Sylphie, and Umandra, confront him. They show him how his leadership gave them the courage to change and improve their own lives.
They remind him that he is not alone, and that his true power is his ability to unite and inspire others. Moved to tears by their unwavering support, Uchimura finally shatters his own chains of self-doubt. He returns to the Demon Lord, stops sabotaging himself, and accepts the throne, promising to find his own unique way to rule.
Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question. How will an ordinary human, a former salaryman without a single shred of magic, actually rule the entire demon world? I mean, we've seen how he navigated middle management with corporate warfare, but ruling an empire? That's a whole new ballgame. It's a fascinating cliffhanger that completely flips the script on what it means to be powerful. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to dig deeper into Uchimura's incredible journey.